Welcome to the Remarkable Dentist Podcast with me, Fred Joyal, where I interview amazing dental practice owners digging into their successes and failures, their insights and hindsights, getting their views on where dentistry is going, and discovering what it took for them to become remarkable. Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable Dentist Podcast. I'm Fred Joyal, and today is a very special day because normally I have dentists on, remarkable dentists, but here I have somebody who has been working in the dental industry for a good part of his life, knows about as much about dentistry as anybody I know, my dear friend, Bernie Stoltz. Welcome to the show, Bernie.
Freddie, so great to see you again, my friend.
So if you don't know who Bernie is, he's the CEO of Fortune Management, which is a nationwide dental practice management company, and it's the largest dental practice management in the country, maybe in the world. Bernie, would you say in the world?
Well, yeah, probably bigger than Russia, I think. But
yeah, Russia's consulting is hurting right now.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think, dentistry is so much more organized here in the United States than anywhere else in the world. So probably in the world. I love to say that. Makes me feel good. But yeah, I mean, and it's, practice management, executive coaching, key business strategies for dentists all over the country. It has been our labor of love for 32 years now.
Yep. And I'm deeply involved. I know a lot of the coaches really well. I know a lot of the dentists really well. And you've had a tremendous impact on their careers, but you've done something really significant this year. And it is, you have taken all of your wisdom and life learning and painful mistakes and put them into this book right here, The Fortune Recipe. So very excited. Congratulations, first of all, on bringing this book out. And I'm certainly extremely familiar with the content, but what brought this on? How did you decide to write this specific book?
Well, thank you. Well, I got to tell you, and it's so important that you said, from my casualties and my mistakes. I think that's just every human being on the planet, right? We don't. In fact, I've said for years, I don't know that we learn much from our victories. I think what we learn most from our victories is just how to celebrate and all that kind of good stuff. But I think the greatest learning lessons any of us ever have is from our failures, and to rejoice in those. But I think the thought about really doing this book started right about a few years ago when I had just turned 60. And it's a really cool story because I have a friend of mine, somewhat of a mentor, who's in his mid 70s now. And he wanted to remind me that once you get to 60, it can be the greatest decade in your life. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, he goes, if you've taken care of yourself fairly well and you still got health and you've taken care of your money a little bit and you've got a little bit of wealth, then your mindset is just probably in the best place it's ever going to be. You don't care as much about what people think anymore. Your ego's a little bit more in check, and it can be one of the most wonderful decades of your life. And it has, I'm 62 now, and it really is shaping up that way. And along with that, I'm a really, really grateful guy. And one of the things I thought is I said, I want to make sure that I can leave something of a legacy, not just to my family and kids and stuff, but to the company and everything. And really, if I had a powerful why for this book, and I put it in the prologue to the book, this is really what I would consider my version of pay it forward. And really wanted to do this for a lot of reasons. Reason number one is I believe that any human being, because this is not just a dentistry book. In fact, there's very, very little about dentistry in it. And probably the key to the title of this book is not just the Fortune recipe, but the subtitle, which is Essential Ingredients for Creating Your Best Life. And what my hope is with this book is that any human being who reads it, any young adult, even a kid, and maybe even somebody in their 60s, 70s, 80s, anyone could read it, and it would help them to just elevate the quality of their life, to create the best life they could. We only get one of these last time I checked. So I think we all have an obligation to ourselves, to live our best life. And if it causes one person to do as little as just a pivot or a shift, or to make their life better in any way at all, then I think the time and the effort put in this book was worthwhile. And, I have to start the conversation off by thanking you, Fred. I mean, you and I'm not, by self-admission, I'm not a guy who likes to sit at the laptop and write. I'm not a writer. You are, by the way, and you've done some incredible books, and congratulations to you on Super Bowl, which is also going to change a lot of lives. And so when the thought came in, after the pandemic kind of hit, it was beginning of 2020, I think, we started talking about this book, you and I, and I'll never forget, I had did about a 2-hour program at Cyril World in Las Vegas, DS World in Vegas. And I really used about 37 of the principles that are in this book, but it was long before a book came out. And I remember you coming up to me at the end of that lecture, because we had a packed house. It seemed like it was well received. And you said, you know what? You go, that's a book right there. And we ought to videotape that, and then we ought to expand on it. And lo and behold, beginning of 2021, you and I, with the pandemic, had a little time on our hands, right? So what we did is we blocked off, if I recall, a 2-hour Zoom call every Tuesday morning for about 20 weeks. And I would just get on, just like I'm doing right now, ranting and raving. And you would capture it, record it all, and then you made sense out of all of it and put it into a great order. And I really want to thank you and compliment you, because it really turned out beyond my expectations. So it was definitely a team effort, and I appreciate that. And what we wanted to do here is we wanted to do multiple things. First of all, as I said already, I wanted it to be a crossover book that any human being can read and make their life better. And what I tell people is, we've said this for 32 years at Fortune Management: trust the recipe. And because we have a recipe for growing dentists and doctors and their practices and their teams, and culturally making them better. And we say, look, you got to have a little trust in the recipe. And what I've kind of done is said the same thing about this book. In other words, if someone was to really trust the recipe and use most, and I don't think you have to use all the principles. There's a lot of them. There's close to 50 different principles. It's about a 300-page read. But I think that they're all good. There's not a bad one there. And I think that anybody could make their life better with it. Just some helpful tips to do that. So I wanted that. And one of the things I've told the dental community, and I told our coaching community, first of all, Fortune's got about 150 people in 70 markets now, about 1,200 dental practices under management. And the other entendre for really doing this book was to be able to share the DNA of Fortune and some of my core principles, core values over the last 30 years that have got me to have what I believe is an incredible life. I love my life. I'm just grateful every day. But I told the coaches, I said, if all of you were to read it, and then you were to have every one of your doctors read it, and then every one of your doctors had everybody on their team read it, I believe they would have better cultures, they'd have better practices, and probably make a little more money too. So that was definitely an outcome. And then it was also for any reader to just understand the DNA of our company, because a lot of my core values have been what we have reflected on in building what has been a labor of love and something that I've been passionate about now for over 3 decades. So those are all the reasons that we got it out there. It launched actually, I think February 15th, and we got it up as high as I think number 4 on the Amazon bestseller list for personal development and self-help. So we're proud of that. And also, right after it came out, I made another announcement, which I think is really important for the viewers to hear. And that is, I did not do this book to make money or profits from. And to prove it, all proceeds of this book are going to go to the Fortune Platinum Foundation, which is a 501c charity that does great work to third world countries and even here in the United States with things like Freedom Day and just helping people and really getting money to people who could really use it. And we've had that foundation now for 10 years. So that was also a motive too, would be to help the foundation. So it's all good.
Yeah, and as you said, the week you launched, it zoomed right up to number 4. So it's not going to be just one person it impacts. It's not just going to be in dentistry. I have talked to several people who have read it and at various ages, and they are extremely enriched by your thoughts, your concept, your recipe, and it's very much about. I want to clear this up because I know that the way you wrote the book, it's not about, this isn't a get rich book in terms of money. This is about a rich life, but it's a different formula than that. And so it starts off with one of your most powerful messages and hard-earned lessons. Actually, I want to go back and because you started off as a fairly successful business person at a young age, and a lot of people would have said, "Wow, I'd be so happy if that happened to me." So, what happened to you when you were achieving that level of success?
Yeah, well, as I said in the book, and you're so true, it's really about having a great life. It's not about how much money you make. So I don't want people to take the name Fortune there, which is the name of our company, and say, "Oh man, I'm going to make a fortune if I read this book." That's not the promise here. But life is a roller coaster, and you ebb, you flow, you fail, you win. And what I say in the book, and one of the things I wanted to come out of this book was, I don't want anybody in this world, especially in this country, greatest country in the world, where we have more opportunities than anywhere else. And as weird as the times we live in today, there's still more opportunity here in America, and there's more good stuff going on than ever before. But I believe there always was, and I think you have to believe that. But one of the things that I wanted to do was dispel any limiting beliefs that anybody has, that no matter where they come from, they can go to having the best life. I came from very humble beginnings. My mom and dad were amazing, great people, got so much love and so much good core values. And when they had me, they were 19 years old. And so it was kind of kids raising kids. They were figuring it out. And money was not, let's just say there was not a lot of arguments about excess capital in the house growing up. And so what I was told at a very young age is, look, if you want to be happy, you better go out and make the money you want to make so that you can do the things you want to do. Then you get to be happy, right? And I bought into that. And so, yeah, it was out of my motivation, my hunger, my drive, my passion, that from the time I was about 22, 23, when I went into business with my dad in a tire store for the first time, one little modest tire store in Daly City, California, to the time I was 30, and it was go, 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 bust your ass. And so by the time I was 30, I had that. I got a lot of that stuff, but I also had this rude awakening that I still wasn't happy. And that's a scary place you don't want to be in your life, is when you've been told that, if you did all these things and you accomplished all these things, then you'd get to have the money and then you'd be happy. Well, you and I both know money won't make you happy.
It can make you miserable.
Yes, it can make you miserable. Now, the great thing is it can give you some choices, if you use them wisely. And so at 30 years old, I just reinvented myself. And I talk about that in the book, is just to say, look, I was raised in reverse. And what I would tell anyone, whether they read the book or not, I tell people in seminars all around the country is, look, it's who you be first. It's be first, then you get to do, and then you can have whatever it is you want. You can have happiness, you can have joy, you can have love, you can have the money, you can have the lifestyle, but it's who you're being first. And one of the very first chapters in the book, Fred, as you know, is a chapter called gratitude. And of course, it's easy for people to pick up the book and say, well, of course he's grateful. He's built this wonderful life and all this cool stuff. But what I want the reader also to understand is I had to be grateful when I didn't have it. I had to be grateful when I was on the way. I had to be grateful for what I did have. And because out of gratitude, that's the platform that allows you to have so many other good emotions. And you have to be emotionally and mentally fit and have strength of mind if you're going to do anything great in this world. So that was kind of and then once I got on a roll and really figured out what my life was, could be, and all the tools, a lot of tools we talk about in this book, well, man, then it was just, the last 30 years have been just amazing.
Yeah. And they became the operative principles of your company as well, that everybody everything comes from the leader and the leadership. It all starts there. And one of the things that always attracted me to Fortune from the very beginning was the win-win mindset and how important that is to your business. So talk about that a little bit, because I think everybody, this to me is an essential ingredient in a fulfilling life.
Well, it is. And I would never dare to take all the credit for all the wonderful principles and core values and all the DNA of Fortune Management. There are countless people who have contributed. I mean, one of the things that we talk about a lot these days at Fortune is that, first of all, it's a company of leaders leading leaders. And the synergy in that company today is amazing. I mean, we have an internal workplace chat space, as you know, and boy, anybody in the country who has a question about anything, practice management or just life related, and you get 30 different answers. So, but yes, I take pride in the leadership. I think I try to have always been the keeper of the culture. And, we've had a motto at Fortune now and it's very simple. If we teach it, we do it. And if we don't do it, we don't teach it. So we want to be very pure and transparent to that. And to what you just said is win-win, which was the title of, the last book that I collaborated on with one of my good friends and partners, Mark Murphy. And that was very dental related as far as mergers, acquisitions, transitions, partnerships, all kinds of that in the practice management space, specifically in dentistry. And what we say in that book is that, look, there does not have to be, in any business transaction or any life transaction with your friends or whoever, family, there doesn't have to be a winner and a loser. In fact, quite frankly, you and I talk about that in the book. That's a game I'm not willing to play, which is a zero-sum game. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of people out there in business and also in life who think that that's the only way to play the game. And you see people that they're jealous of other people because maybe somebody else made a big hit or a score or created something great or attained wealth. You see it in all elements, and it's just not a way. I know when we started teaching financial freedom classes at Fortune, 3 decades ago, one of the things I would always remind people is if one of your friends or one of your relatives or anybody you know in business does well, has a success, hits a home run, whatever that is, you should be happy for them. Because if you don't feel happy for them, then all you're doing is you're training your own mind that it's wrong to succeed or wrong to have wealth in your life. And it's a self-sabotaging effect. But one of the things that, I talk to doctors a lot of times we're in the middle of negotiations on a merger acquisition, a partnership transition, and maybe one of the clients wants us to negotiate in such a way where there is going to be a loser or we've taken advantage of the other side. And I have to just say, look, we're not doing that. Or if you want to do that, that's fine, but we're not putting Fortune's name on that. I'm not putting my name on it. I'm not putting my reputation on it, because 2 things. First of all, it's wrong. And second of all, it doesn't have to happen. And I would say you go all the way in all areas of your life. 1 and 1 can equal 3 if you do it right. So I wanted to make sure that, people who are reading the book understand that success comes from an abundant mind, not a scarcity mind, and that you should be looking at every relationship you have, whether it be husband, wife, whatever it is, win-win.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And tied right to that, which is also in the book, is this idea and this wrong mindset that a lot of people have that, if in order to do good, I can't benefit financially. I have to be, in order to be really generous, I have to be giving it all away. I have to, I have to be live in poverty or whatever it is. And you really put out the really powerful idea that it's the opposite of that as part of a fulfilling life.
Yeah. I talk to people every once in a while who want to, go out and help the poor or help people less fortunate than they are. And I say, well, that's great, but it's pretty tough to go out and help people if you're poor yourself. And conversely to that, I know you and I argue over the languaging on this, but I have always believed it's okay to do good, doing good things for others. And I think that, quite frankly, that if you really study great companies, not just human beings, but great companies, they all share somewhat of a mindset like that. Whether you see it as your brand, your product, your service, your dental practice, how do you add more value through your chosen profession than anybody else can? Because when you take that mindset, then not only are you setting out for the right reasons to lead with your giving hand and add value, but the world will be the path to your door. Money's just a yardstick for the value you give other human beings. That's all it is, right? So if your company, your service, your product is helping more people, both internally and externally, because, there's another chapter in that book about falling in love with business and honoring business and respecting business. I respect business. A lot of people see business, again, like you said, as something that's evil or something that takes advantage of somebody else. I've never seen it that way. I've always seen business as something that serves the community, serves the people, makes the world a better place, and at the same time creates jobs and pays taxes and all those other wonderful unintended consequences, right? So I think it's a mindset,
And it really is that if you get trapped in this, somebody's really successful, really wealthy, they're probably not doing any good, and they should be donating all that money. And we deal with that with dentists too, who are very successful, and we have to remind them, it's like, what you offer is an incredible service. You're making people live longer, be healthier, eat better, be more attractive, all of these things. It's okay to be successful, to be really successful, to be paid in accordance with your efforts. And it's really important to help people break through that trap, because they end up trying to give all their money away, or they don't charge enough, or they feel, when you're really successful, you can donate a lot of money. When you're really successful as a dentist, you can do a free day of dentistry for veterans, and it's like not a problem. You got to have something to give it away.
Well, not this is a dental podcast, so let me speak specifically to all of our dental friends out there. Price makes a statement about who you are. Okay, so one of the things we've told dental practices for more than 3 decades, is don't be willing to play the price game or wallow in the price gutter. That's my more and more. I mean, our company's more passionate than ever about the preservation of private practitioner dentistry, but also about moving them away from insurance dependence in an appropriate, intelligent way. But I think that's all part of it. It's about you want to run a successful practice. And you should be profitable, and you got to take care of yourself, so that you can take care of everybody on your team, so that you can take care of the patients, all of it. I have said for years is in all of business, I think there are 3 E's. There's excellence, there's efficiency, and there's economy. And you can study all kinds of businesses. If I named you some names like Tiffany, Nordstrom's, Neiman Marcus, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, on and on, Four Seasons hotels, they all have something in common. They are excellent. They're at the top of their scale as far as quality and service, and they're efficiently run, but they're not cheap. They're not economical at all, and they're not for everybody. Now, I can name some other names too, like McDonald's and Walmart, and maybe even today you make a case for Amazon, where efficiency and economy are the two. But one of the things, if you're a dentist out there listening to this today, you've got to pick who you are, and you got to be true to your own identity, your own business model, and also you can't be everybody's dentist. You and I have said that for years, right? So you got to decide what are the 2 out of 3, because that's one of the things that will put dentists in pain and have for decades, is they want to try to be all things to all people. And if you really study successful businesses and other professions, they typically don't do that.
And this ties right into that in terms of anybody in business, and you talk about this, is embracing technology so that you can be more affordable, deliver a higher quality product more efficiently. And so that's one of your recipe elements. We live in a world where technology can be transformational if you apply it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole thing. I think the title of that chapter is Embrace Technology. And if you're not in a dental practice, it means embrace the technology that you do have to support yourself, whether it's really learning how to respond to an email or a text on your phone just as quickly as a phone call, and just all the technology that's out there to make the world a better place. One of the things that frustrates me right now, and you've heard me talk about this, is I'm very frustrated with our medical system, not necessarily our dental profession, but our medical system right now. Because if you think about it, we live in a world where we have more technology and more knowledge about how to treat a human being and how to keep a human being alive longer. But yet most people would agree our medical system is kind of broken. And that's sad. Now, in dentistry, absolutely, we have to embrace technology, and so it's like when Sarek and single visit dentistry came out. I know you and I were early on the bandwagon. And I still believe that today, because if you can do that, you can actually deliver higher quality, and you can do it quicker, and you can do it more efficiently, and you can do it for less money, right? So you can do all those things. I mean, we were just having a conversation last week about there are practices out there today who I say, well, are you using CAD/CAM technology, right? And they go, oh yeah, I'm doing digital impressions. And I go, whoa. I go, what have you done with digital impressions to help you create single visit dentistry? There's a big difference between a CEREC process and a single visit dentistry where we can get a patient in and out in an hour and a half, one visit, and just saying that we're now doing scanning and digital impressions, or what we call that DI. And I would really encourage any dentist who is watching this today, really think through that a little bit. How much are you really saving? Because most of the time when it's digital impressions, it means it's just going to a lab who's using a CEREC mill anyway. So I mean,
that's the amazing thing, is a lot of them don't realize that it's just going to the next generation of CEREC mill. It's, higher production, but it's the same concept.
Yeah, except it's a 2-visit process, and you're still temporizing, and so I want everyone watching this today to really think your way through that. I mean, there's some nice digital scanning and stuff out there, but I just don't. I don't see the sense of when you could do it alternatively in one visit.
Yeah, it's picking up half of the technology rather than really completing the benefit by having both sides of the technology. So make sure you're utilizing everything that's available to you, and make sure your team is. This just a side note is, it makes the job more interesting for your team, because they can do 90% of that whole single visit process, and you just do, as a dentist, what you're licensed for. Now we got to be careful not to get into all of that, because we got a few more minutes, and we can't begin to touch on all of the points in the book, but because there's so many of them. Each of them were really evolved from how you learn from business, learn from life, learn from your experiences. And so I want to talk about a couple more of them, just to whet people's appetite, because you should read the book. I mean, you folks got to get the book, and also feel free to email Bernie and insist he record the audio book, because a lot of people want to listen to it and read it. Having it in your hands, I think, is very valuable, because it's almost like a reference thing. It's like you could open it anywhere and read a chapter and say, wow, that really means something to me. And you talk about health too at this, the importance of taking care of your body as part of being successful and having a fulfilling life.
Yeah, well, the reason I put that in there is I think mastering your physical body is part of mastering a life. And obviously, you start recognizing or realizing when you don't have health, when you don't have it, right? But more importantly, what I also wanted the reader to understand is that energy is the fuel of excellence. So a motivator for me to always, continue to have those 4 quadrants in my life, right? 4 quadrants being exercise, diet, supplements, and just any minds, and actually sleep is the 4th one. And that's kind of part of a mindset I talk about. And in other words, one of the things when I'm coaching someone on a major decision, I'll say, hey, why don't you employ the 24-hour rule? Because there's scientific evidence that says if you sleep on something, your brain connects different synapses and motor neurons overnight. Your perspective on a situation is different the next day. And I think we live in a sleep-deprived world, not to get off on a tangent, but I think you need 8 hours. And boy, I had to learn that the hard way too. I remember when I was, early 30s, doing a lot of work with Tony Robbins, and the mantra then was sleep when you're dead, and we could work and be fully capable on 4 or 5 hours, but in reality, not true. What we all need that. So those 4 quadrants: exercise, diet, supplements, and sleep, and also a directed mind, right? But the key is whether you want to do those things to live to be 100 or run a marathon or look good in a suit, size 2 dress, that's wonderful. But energy is what it takes, because there's another chapter in the book which is called passion, energy, and drive. And one of the things that's helped me in my life, I mean, I don't know, I don't think my IQ is any better than anybody else's, but if there's one thing I prided myself on, is always having passion, energy, and drive. So that's where the physical thing comes in for me, Fred.
Yeah, and we started this conversation really talking about how you had been very successful in business, but you had no purpose to what you were doing. You weren't contributing, and that's what comes out in the book in a number of places, that how you make sure you're following this path of contribution, and knowing that that's where the fulfilling life comes from.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you said early in the interview, you learn from your failures, and again, how true, because I know in my first 10 years of my business career, let's call it my 20s, it was all about making money. It was all about transactionality. And it was something I learned later on. In fact, I went on to tell my kids, and I still tell them today, Jennifer and Michael, who are amazing. And I always say, look, not appropriate for dad to ever tell you what to do for a living or what career to go into. I go, the only coaching I would give you is don't be willing ever to go into a business where you're buying things, selling things, and living on the margins. Because at the end of the day, it won't have a purpose. I don't care if you go be a teacher, a firefighter, a doctor, or anything, but choose something for a career that's going to have some sort of a power purpose, that's going to get you up early and keep you up late, because then you'll be great at it, And until I really turned the corner and made coaching and fortune and all those things my life, I didn't have the purpose. And if I'm going to transfer that to advice to a dentist and to a dental practice, I'll tell you what I would say. You need to take a look at how the practice is being run. Is it about the transaction of doing dentistry, or are you building your business based on a great culture and on the spirit of hospitality? Tony Hsieh, the late founder of Zappos, had a great saying. He said, chase the vision and the dollars will chase you. And I can't say enough about that. Anything that I've ever been massively successful at, it's because it had a power purpose. And I would say that has transferred over into the dental profession for me in the way we guide them. Because quite frankly, I don't want to work with transactional dentists. And I don't think patients necessarily want to come see them. So it can't just be about money. It's got to be about the purpose of making the world a better place through oral health.
It's so true. And so the last chapter of the book, because I want to make sure people know how to get the book if they somehow don't, which is go to Amazon, is a word that you use regularly, which is the word mahalo, which goes back to, you have a certain level of Hawaii, which I think is in the background there, but I could be wrong. Maybe that's Pebble Beach. I don't know what's behind you. It's that Pebble Beach behind you.
That is where I am today at my home in Pebble Beach. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I have a 40+ year love affair with the state of Hawaii. And, I went there as a young kid, when college years, summer vacations, and you went for all the same reasons that most American tourists go there. And that is for the sun, the surf, and all those wonderful things. But then when I really just learned the culture of the Hawaiian people. And of course, in one of the, I think still one of the proudest business decisions that I ever made was in the year 2000, which is now 22 years ago. I decided to bring Fortune and all of its continuing education and practice management to the state of Hawaii. Because back then, 22 years ago, you really couldn't get quality CE in the state. Most of the time, the doctors, the teams had to get on a plane and fly to Vegas or LA or San Francisco or on the West Coast to get it. And I just felt there was so much good dentistry being done over there. And it just all fit with my life, because I always, in fact, it's funny, there's another chapter in the book, and that is, there's no work, there's no play. It's just how I live. So one of the things that fit right into that principle was, let's bring Fortune to Hawaii. And it's been a labor of love. I still, even the last 2 years have been a little tough with the pandemic, but there was a time when I was living there in the state about 60 nights a year, about 2 months of the year, on and off throughout the year, bringing Fortune over there. And a wonderful thing happened, and that is I really learned the culture of the Hawaiian people and the spirituality of who they are. And so the word mahalo is how I finish just about every email that I send, a lot of texts I send, and also a lot of live lectures that I do. I end with the word mahalo. And it's to educate people that it doesn't just mean thank you, like gracias in Spanish, like the tourist term. It really goes back to tribal days with the Hawaiian tribes. And mahalo really means with ultimate gratitude and respect. And there's a lot to that, right? And I think that's part of how you want to live a life. You want to live your life what they call the Pono way, right? Which is just the right way to live your life. So mahalo is an important word for me, and I even wrote a chapter on it.
Yeah, and I want to let people know that we have really touched on some of the essential ingredients for creating your best life here in the Fortune recipe. There are so many there, we couldn't begin to cover them. So I want to tell people, you can get the book on Amazon. It's in hardcover and it's in Kindle, coming soon in Audible, but don't wait. Get it,
yeah, don't wait. But I just have to get a week that I got to dedicate to going in the studio and actually making that happen. It's either that or I'm going to have you read it to him.
Well, it could be. I can do your voice. I can work on it.
I can do it. But and the other thing that's cool about the book too is that, because we all at Fortune are coaches, we wanted to make sure that we ended every chapter, just about every chapter, with some coaching questions. So that's kind of cool too, because you can really apply this book to your own life and your own thinking and your own beliefs. And I think that that's important too, because the power of questions is the ultimate way to change a life or make a life better. The better the questions you ask, the better the answers you get, right? So it's Amazon, easiest way to do it, either in hardcover or Kindle. And of course, always available to get a hold of me, or just go to Fortune's main site, which is Fortune MGMT, fortunemgmt.com.
And that'll be in the show notes, and I'll pop it up on the screen if you're watching video. We started by talking about gratitude. We should end by talking about gratitude, because it's the core of how I think you and I live our lives at this point, and it really changes everything. So I'm intensely grateful for the 15-year friendship that we've had, the abundance that has become immeasurable from this relationship, and I'm grateful to have been able to help you put all your thoughts and wisdom and experience into this book. And I really encourage people to absorb this and really have a rich life. So mahalo to you, Bernie.
Thank you very much, Fred. And I'm right back at you. I'm grateful for you. And, you know, the way we came to meet was, 15 years ago, I picked up a book called Everything is Marketing. And I knew who you were, but we really didn't have a friendship. And of course, I've made it a habit in my life to meet who I thought were my heroes or people that were aligned with me. And so, if you know what happened, I called you up. I go, hey, we got to go to dinner, and
Yeah.
we did. And the rest has been history. And if I was going to send gratitudes beyond that, it's to, first of all, friends and family. And my wife has been right. Nancy's been with me every step of the way. We're going to be celebrating our 38th wedding anniversary this year, and together, God, 44 years. But it's also all the men and women of fortune who share the same DNA of the beliefs and principles that's really about helping all of our doctors and their teams to turn their dreams into their realities, which is really what a great coach should do. So it's been fun. And again, thank you for letting me take an hour with you today. Always a pleasure, my friend. Mahalo.
Thank you, Bernie, for your time, and thank you, folks, for listening. I hope this piques your interest and you decide to create your best life, because the ingredients are all there. And that's our show.